my name's Priscilla and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do a wrap up of the children's picture books that I recently read. I actually read 5 recently that I hauled in my LATINX-A-THON vlog, and I'm really proud of myself because first of all I read everything that I hauled within a short time period, but also I'm happy that I checked out these Latinx own voices stories during Hispanic Heritage Month because I thought these stories were really great and I just kind of want to show them off a little bit. So I'm going to be reviewing 5 children's books today, and I hope that you'll keep watching and maybe pick up a children's book because these picture books I think are so important. As a voracious reader, I always had trouble finding books as a child that reflected me and that showed, you know, brown girls on covers and had my stories and experiences reflected. So I'm just really happy these books exist. And also just in our current political climate, in our current modern world, it's just really nice and comforting and inspirational to have stories like this. So I'm really excited about them and I hope that you are too. The first picture book that I had to talk about is called Lucia the Luchadora, and this is by Cynthia Leonora Garza, and it's illustrated by Alyssa Bermudez. And this is a story about the main character, Lucia, who has a lot of the same problems that kids have. She likes to play on the playground. She wants to jump off the swings and fly as high as she can. And one day, little boys tell her that because she's wearing a cape, that she cannot be a superhero because girls can't be superheroes. So she runs to her grandmother and tells her this story, and in return her grandmother shares a secret about her family history. She tells Lucia that Lucia comes from a family of luchadoras, and this is great news for her because that means that she can put on this cape and this mask from her family and she can be a superhero because that's part of her history. So she is the new sensation on the playground. She inspires other little girls to be superheroes, and other boys want to be just like her. And I think that's a great message for kids, and I really enjoyed the art in this. The movement and the playing on the playground was really fun. I will say the one drawback that I had while reading this book was whenever Lucia is angry, she describes herself as being spicy mad, and of course being a picture book, it's illustrated with some like angry peppers and jalapenos, and that perpetuation of a very nasty stereotype regarding brown Latinx women is something that I personally have a big issue with. So outside of that part, I thought that this was a very good picture book and I think it's really fun. The next book that I had to talk about is called Separate is Never Equal, and this is by Duncan Tonatua, and I apologize if I mispronounced that name. And this is a picture book that is about the desegregation in schools in California nearly 10 years before Brown versus the Brown versus the Board of Education that eliminated segregation in schools in the entire nation. So this is a very important court case that I honestly had very little knowledge of. And I thought that this was a wonderful book that not only delved into some historical facts and that told that story from the Sylvia Mendez family, but also I really enjoy the art in this, and this is art that I am not as familiar with as well. The author of this picture book is also the illustrator, and he is from Mexico originally, now living in the United States. And he says that he grew up in Mexico, and upon coming to the States for school, he really mixed Mexican culture, and he started to delve into some of the more ancestral traditional art forms that took place in the pre-Columbian time period. And this is what inspires his art. So his art style is inspired by 15th century Mexican indigenous peoples, and it was really important for him to see his culture in this form and in ways that he had never seen before. So there's very much a flatness and a geometry in his art that is maybe not for everyone, but I think is really important. And I think it's a really fun way to mix traditional with modern stories. And as he says, all art is political. So I think it's important to pay respect to these stories from Latinx people with traditional Latinx art. I really recommend this, and the author also has a lot of other children's books available out there in the same style, so I'm definitely going to be checking those out. So the next book that I have to talk about is called Celia Cruz, the Queen of Salsa. And this is written by Veronica Chambers, and it's illustrated by Julie Marin. So this is a book that is very enchanting in its storytelling about the famous salsa singer Celia Cruz, who is a very prolific image for Afro-Latinx women in particular, and also for Cuban culture and music as well. So this is brilliantly illustrated. It's vibrant in color and in voice. And I think that this is a great portrait of Celia Cruz from growing up as a young girl that finds her voice, and her voice is described as sounding like a songbird or like sugar even. And it follows her in her rise to fame and how she eventually became the queen of salsa. So first of all, when I saw this, I was so happy to see a picture book with a Afro-Latina, Afro-Cubana on the cover. And I know that this was very important to the author as well. The author is Panamanian, and she also describes herself as Afro-Latinx. Celia Cruz is a role model for so many Afro-Latinx people that have often had their voices marginalized in Latinx communities. It's so beautiful to see a story, almost a story of a princess, shown in this way. So I also enjoyed the writing in this. I think that there are some very rich descriptions of music and Celia's passion for music. So for example, there's a story in here. It says, "It was the kind of music that sizzled from the joy of being alive." I think writing like that paired with the beautiful, vibrant art really made this story come to life. So this is a great biography picture book. The next picture book I want to talk about is Alma y Cómo Obtuvo Su Nombre, and this is written by Juana Martinez Nail. I apologize if I mispronounced that, but this is an Own Voices Peruvian author and illustrator, and this is her debut as an author and illustrator. So this is a picture book that follows a 6-year-old Alma who has a lot of questions for her dad. She doesn't understand why her name is so long. She actually has 6 names, and in asking her dad decides to tell her the history of each of the people in her family that she is named after. And in the end, she discovers that Alma is her own name and that she has her own story to write for the people that will be named after her in the future. And I really love this message, this story. I remember personally just not understanding why my family has a million names either. I know my grandmother has at least 8 names, and that's something that I always questioned as a child myself, so I really loved seeing that portrayed in this. And also this book is all in Spanish, but I think it's because it's a picture book and it's a children's book, it's actually very easy to follow and infer what is happening based on the beautiful illustrations. So in learning some history about her family and her names, for instance, Sofia was her grandmother and she loved flowers and books. I can totally relate to that. Esperanza was her great-grandmother and she loved to travel, and then Alma discovers, oh, I like to travel too, that is a part of me. And Jose was her grandfather and he was an artist, and she thought, hey, I can draw too, that's also a part of me. So I really love that message, and I really love the sketch style sort of pastel charcoal feel of these illustrations as well. I think it's really beautiful and timeless and classic, and I think that a lot of people will love this art style in this picture book as well. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get to this one because it was all in Spanish and I wasn't sure if I was going to like the art, but I'm really glad that I picked it up because I left this feeling very hopeful and inspired. So really enjoyed this. But the next book that I have to talk about is La Princesa and the Pea. And this is also by, well, it's illustrated by Juana Martinez Nail, so the illustrator from the last book, but it is written by Susan Middleton Elia. I thought that this book was illustrated very well, but the story was a little lacking. The illustrations are so beautiful, and this is inspired by indigenous Peruvian traditional quilts. And these quilts are all and all these people are indigenous peoples as well, so I love that aspect of the story. And it's about this girl who's a princess who's gonna be married to a prince, a prince has proposed to her, but the queen does not want them to be married. So she has this plan of sabotage to sabotage them. And it is fun. It's a fun story along the way to figure out if this princess and prince are meant to be together or not. I think the story was a little rocky, could have used a little bit more refining, but I really enjoyed the artwork throughout, and the story is very similar through Alma y Como Tuvo Su Nombre, but I think in here the color really lent to the story as well. And this one I think is also easier for some young bilingual readers because it has a lot of English in it, but it also has some Spanish phrases, and there's also a glossary to define some of these Spanish words. So I think that's really nice and very educational for as a picture book. And I think I'm really liking these educational picture books as an adult. But yeah, this is another great one that I'm glad I picked up. Well, that's all that I have for you today, and I hope that you enjoyed this mini review of some children's picture books, and hopefully you'll pick up some in the future because I find them to be very nice to read in very tough times. Please leave a comment below if you've read or enjoyed any picture books this year, and I might want to pick them up. But that's all I have for you today, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video. Bye!